All right, it's time for Tanya Summary Shiur. A little bit bittersweet because it's the last one, but all good things should be continued, and we could definitely re-listen to them in years to come. But without further ado, I don't want to dawdle too much because I did technically leave 5 chapters for the end, which I believe is actually the biggest stretch of chapters, if not the biggest in and of itself, but it's at least tied for biggest. I don't remember how many is exactly the longest amount of chapters we were able to fit into a week, but as we mentioned before, we are doing Ultamitely chapter by chapter. That is to say, we're not dividing them into all chapters so that we don't lose our train of thought. So, yeah, we're going to do 5 chapters, Mr. Hashem, but all of them are rather short. So, without further ado, let's get into it. In chapter 5 of Ultamitely, the 5th part of Tanya, it continues on a theme that was discussed in earlier Ultamitly's, even though each one is distinct, but a similar idea. The Alter Rebbe asks, why is it that there are some halachis that aren't common at all, and some of them which possibly never were, never will be? For example, the Alter Rebbe says the laws of pigul, which is a very specific and unique type of mistake to happen in the making of a carbon, in the offering of a carbon. So the Alter Rebbe essentially says it's possible in theory that each avera, which is to say each lack of a mitzvah or each violation of a mitzvah, has some kind of spiritual source. The Alter Rebbe says it's not the main thing. The main thing is that every mitzvah has a spiritual source by Hashem. And each mitzvah has its own way that it comes down into the world. And that's why different mitzvahs have different circumstances, and that's why mitzvahs have very specific parameters. But ultimately, every mitzvah has its source above, and that's why when a mitzvah is violated, the klipas are able to be nurtured from it. But ultimately, the halachis of a mitzvah, in talking about the mitzvah or in thinking about the mitzvah, are things that we can connect to regardless of how common the occurrence of the mitzvah itself actually is. So this is the important part for us. Besides for the action that we do, there's also the speech and the thought, and ultimately it all connects to the same place. It all connects in Hashem's wisdom, ultimately. So that is chapter 5, rather short. Obviously this is a summary, but still, yeah. Anyhow, moving on to chapter 6. It's Drash on the pasuk, or not on the pasuk, on the Agadata, on the story that it said, David HaMelech said, that the statutes of Hashem were his song, and Hashem said, David, you're calling the Torah songs. He said, for that I'm going to punish you, that you're going to forget about a basic halacha, which is that the Aron needs to be carried on shoulders, and therefore, in the chain of events that transpired, someone ended up dying because David HaMelech forgot this halacha. I don't want to get too deep into the story, but ultimately, so yeah, this is a drasha on this. I just had to share the story so things can make sense down the line. So the Alter Rebbe says the reason why David HaMelech was calling the Torah Zemiros, the reason why he was calling it songs, and why he was ecstatic about it, is because he was contemplating the idea that all of the worlds, this world, spiritual worlds, every realm, all of them stacked onto each other, into each other, they all hang in the fulfillment of one mitzvah. And when a person does one mitzvah, let's say you offer a carbon, and the carbon is good, it's proper, then it causes a spiritual unity across all worlds. And David HaMelech was marveling at how one mitzvah is able to accomplish this across all of the worlds. So you might think, okay, well, David HaMelech is right. It's a pretty cool thing, so why was he punished? So the Alter Rebbe says, Hashem said that this isn't the main praise of Torah. The main praise of Torah is not that it's able to accomplish spiritual unity in the worlds. It's that Torah is united with Hashem. Torah is one with Hashem. And to elaborate on that, when you learn Torah, you connect to Hashem. And that in itself is the greatest thing about Torah. The fact that Torah, when you do a mitzvah, it has an effect in the world, that it causes a spiritual unity of upper worlds and lower worlds, it's a nice thing, but it's what we call b'chinas acheraim. It's from the back part. You have, let's say, the front-facing part, the main thing, and then you have the back part. So this idea that Torah causes unity in the world is only a secondary thing. It's a backwards-facing part of Torah. Alter Rebbe quotes a pasuk that Torah is related directly to Hashem, and then it says later in the pasuk, "Misachekes v'sevel artzei," that Torah also causes joy in the plains of his world. So that is why Hashem was frustrated with David. Now, as for his punishment, a very poetic punishment, to a certain extent. We know that Hashem punishes midah keneged midah, that David HaMelech forgot. The idea of forgetting is something that we say is from the level of achirayim. Remembering is being present, and forgetting is the opposite of that. So it's the level of achirayim. I don't want to get too deep into the ideas of why exactly it's the level of achirayim, but that's it in brief. And David HaMelech forgot about a halacha that has to do with the level of achirayim. Literally, to carry the aron on the shoulders is to try to use the shoulders, which is representative of the idea of achirayim, of a backwards-facing part. It's the shoulders aren't intelligent. You have the head on the shoulders, and that thinks. The shoulder is the unfeeling part of the upper part of the body, in a sense. And the reason why we carry the aron on the shoulders is to connect our shoulders to the divine, to connect our level of achirayim to the divine. So David HaMelech forgot about this halacha that pertains to the level of achirayim because he was exalting Torah primarily in the sense that it causes unity in the level of achirayim. So that is chapter 6 of Kuntus Achrein, and now on to chapter 7. The Alter Rebbe goes more back to the original format. I believe that in earlier prints these were actually, maybe not this one, maybe the next one, but that these later letters were actually originally part of Yigaras HaKodesh, but once Kuntus Achrein got inserted, it got pushed later. But I digress. Says, righteousness is like a powerful river. So the Alter Rebbe says that Eson, all of the letters of the word Eson, Aleph, Yud, Taf, and Nun, are all letters that when you put it as a prefix to a word, it causes that the word should be read in a future tense. Nachal is a river, and rivers are a flow. So Alter Rebbe says that tzedakah is like a flow from referring to something in the future. That is to say, that in the future we're going to have a unity with Hashem once He removes all of our, what's referred to as the Arlas Halev, the covering of the heart. But when He removes our coarseness, that we're able to appreciate the divine even though we exist in this lowly world. So we're going to have an appreciation of the divine. Now, this is only in the future. Right now, we're still very invested in the coarseness of the world. So in the future, Hashem will cause that we're going to have this appreciation. And when we give tzedakah, we're able to get in touch, nachal, we're able to have a flow of eson, that which exists in the future, the connection that we're going to be able to appreciate in the future. So just to summarize that idea, through giving tzedakah, we're able to have a flow from the future revelation that we have of our relationship with Hashem. So the Alter Rebbe says that the way to properly appreciate this is through arousing mercy upon our souls, that our souls are really yearning to have this deep connection, and we're stuck in Golos, we're stuck in exile, and we can't really appreciate this. So to make things full circle, how do we arouse the mercy upon our souls so that we can have this appreciation? The Alter Rebbe says an arousal from above comes from an arousal from below, and when we give gold and silver, basically money, to those that are less fortunate than us, we are able to cause the same way that we're having mercy on them. Hashem has mercy on us, and through Hashem's having mercy on us, we're able to have an appreciation of that which our soul so longs for, so yearns for, which is this future relationship with Hashem in a revealed way. So that concludes chapter 7 of Kuntus Achrein in brief. And now moving on to chapter 8, we're going to get two very interesting letters, shtickle Musar letters, where the Alter Rebbe guides the Chassidim, his followers, in conduct and mainly things in shul, different shiurim, very interesting letters. So the first one is that the Alter Rebbe says that basically people are trying to make davening short. They're trying to make chazanim that are taking too long by davening. They're trying to get them out of there. So the Alter Rebbe says that davening longer lengthens a person's life. The Alter Rebbe says a person might say, well, I have a job and I need to get to my job. So if the chazan is taking too long, then I won't be able to stay for the whole minyan. So I'd rather the chazan be taking a shorter time so that I can daven the whole davening with a minyan. The Alter Rebbe says it's better for you not to hear Kedushan Baruch Hu, which is really a fascinating thing to say. I don't want to get too deep into it because it's a summary shiur. But he says better to not hear Kedushan Baruch Hu. And he gives a little bit of halachic reasoning for why it's okay if a person really isn't able to stay in shul. And the Alter Rebbe says that this was the case for the Tanaim and Amoraim, that they had the discussions that he's pulling his halachic reasoning from. And the Alter Rebbe says that certainly in our generations, which are more attuned to davening, as was discussed in earlier chapters and is Bechlal discussed in the writings of the Arizal, that the primary avodah, the primary divine service of our generations is through prayer. So the Alter Rebbe says that certainly we should heed this idea that we should care about davening and to not try to take it away from people that have the ability to daven for longer, that they should be able to be chazan, they should be able to daven longer in shul without the minyan being rushed. And the Alter Rebbe says that we should take it to heart, that we should contemplate the divine when we daven, and we should say Pesukei de Zimra and the blessings of Kriyat Shema and Kriyat Shema itself. And these ideas are really important in the avodah of our generations. And the Alter Rebbe kind of answers a question someone might be asking in theory, which is, if this is the case, why weren't earlier generations doing it? The Alter Rebbe said, because in those days, as far as the divine service of prayer went, they were in a much higher spiritual standing, and they were able to refine that which needed to be refined in themselves and the world through a very brief prayer, comparatively to our prayer. So that concludes chapter 8 of Kontra Sachin, and on to the last chapter. Very bittersweet. The Alter Rebbe says, you should rebuke your fellow even up to 100 times. And the Alter Rebbe says, therefore, I'm not going to stop talking about the idea that people should all try to more or less be holding the same place in davening, not one person in this part of the davening and one person in another part of davening. Alter Rebbe says the main reason why this hefkervelt goes on, why this idea goes on, is because you have people and they just go up to be chazan without asking for permission from the community to see if everyone is fine with it. And presumably what he's saying is that, similar to in the last chapter, that people go to be chazan and they're rushing, and therefore some people are able to hold with chazan and some people aren't able to hold with chazan. And this can even cause people just sitting around doing nothing. This can cause people just like talking about random things in the middle of davening. So the Alter Rebbe says that the good advice for something like this is that there should be a choice of select people who are fit to be chazan, that they're good chazanim, and it should either be a raffle or a rotation, whatever the majority of people want, for how they should be delegated to go up to be chazan. And these people should say word for word in an average pace, in a loud voice. They shouldn't take too long, but they also shouldn't be too short, chas v'shalom. And the Alter Rebbe says that the obligation will be upon these people, that they're designated by the congregation to go to be chazan. And those people that daven properly, that they daven audibly at a regular pace, not that they're going too quickly, they should gather around the chazan, and that should be, in a sense, like the minion of people that are doing things properly. And the Alter Rebbe says that he calls out in a Yiddish expression. It says in the original handwriting, he wrote Gewalt, Gewalt, which means an expression of crying out in shock or in terror, something to that effect. The Alter Rebbe says, how long will this be a problem for us, that we need to be able to be rid of this problem? The Alter Rebbe says everyone should strengthen their hearts in this issue. The Alter Rebbe also says, going back to an idea that was expressed towards the beginning of Igeres HaKodesh, that it's a good thing to finish the entire Gemara every year in every city, to divide the chapters according to a raffle, or by whatever, to divide the Masechtas according to raffle or according to the ones that people select for themselves. And the Alter Rebbe says that if you have a city that has a lot of minyanim, each minyan should finish it. If a certain minyan is too small to be able to finish the entire shas, which is no small undertaking, they should combine with a larger minyan, and this should be an established statute. It should not be violated. And the Alter Rebbe says every one of those that study tractate, a masechta, for this cycle, they should complete every week the 119th chapter of Tehillim, which extols the virtues of the study of Torah. And the Alter Rebbe says, seeing as there's a general notion which is expressed a lot in Igeres HaTshuva, that it's not really possible for people to fast for the various spiritual reasons why a person might want to fast, the Alter Rebbe says that a good way to take the place of the spiritual notion of a fast is to make sure to be vigilant in the keeping of Shabbos. the Alter Rebbe quotes our sages in saying that anyone that keeps Shabbos according to Tzalacha, they forgive him for all of his sins. And the Alter Rebbe emphasizes that it doesn't say anyone that keeps Shabbos, but it says anyone that keeps Shabbos according to Tzalacha, according to his laws. So Alter Rebbe says every person needs to make sure that they're an expert in the large corpus of laws of Shabbos. The Alter Rebbe says also a person should be careful to not speak idle talk on Shabbos. And the Alter Rebbe says every mitzvah has an internal aspect and an external aspect. And just as we're supposed to rest in an external sense from physical work on Shabbos, the Alter Rebbe says that the inner part of Shabbos is that we're supposed to pay extra attention to the prayers of Shabbos and the Torah study of Shabbos, to cleave to Hashem by doing these. And when we guard ourselves from talking idle things on Shabbos, we're guarding the inner aspect of Shabbos. And the Alter Rebbe says that this is analogous to how Hashem rested from creating the world on Shabbos, that the creation happened in a physical sense, but it happened through Hashem's talking, that it says with 10 utterances Hashem created the world. So when we keep Shabbos in a speech aspect, that is to say we don't talk idle speech on Shabbos, so we're keeping Shabbos in an internal aspect. And yeah, that is the completion of Kuntas. It's the completion of Tanya. Shavach l'kel b'Elam, that we're able to make it this far in the summaries, and by this far I mean the end, Kanai Nahara. And very fortunate that we were all able to take this journey together. And Yirmiyas Hashem, we can keep on listening to it for years to come, for decades, for centuries, millennium to come into Moshiach Satan, not to get ahead of ourselves day by day. And even though we have day by day, we should still keep our eye on the big picture. Yashar Koach for everyone that made the whole journey